There we go. I posted. Great, cool. You set this up now? Nice. Okay. Welcome back. As I said, middle part jump scare. I'm playing Mario Kart Wii again. Hopefully, what I'm trying to sort of condition this to be is that, like, if I'm playing Mario Kart Wii, it might be more just about the gaming. And I'll still talk politics. I love talking about politics and offering my analysis and shit. But I don't know how many segments I would make for this, because editing segments is quite cumbersome when I'm playing Mario Kart Wii. Like when there's gameplay footage of that. I've not been paying attention to politics for 3 days. Is there anything that happened? The United States is engaging in a shocking amount of brinksmanship with Iran, very reminiscent of in 2003, when the United States went to war. Why did I select single player there? With Iraq. It would be disastrous, and the public approval is not even remotely there for a war with Iran the way it actually kind of was for a war with Iraq in the early 2000s. For 3 days. What happened the past 3 days? I know Brad Lander was arrested and then subsequently released by ICE because the administration is clumsily trying to interfere in the New York City mayoral election to try to get Andrew Cuomo elected, because they can tie him on the end of a string in a way they really can't with somebody like Mamdani. Yeah, classic ICE behavior. God, I think even the assassination of state-level Democrat politicians is outside of that 3-day scope. The past 3 days, the discussion has mostly been about that. Oh yeah, also today, something I will talk about for sure, is that the Supreme Court ruled that state-level bans, categorical bans on transgender care can stand. During Pride Month, the Supreme Court ruled, yeah, it's okay for states to ban transgender care and discriminate against transgender people when providing medical care, if that's the state law stipulates as such, because trans people are not subject to the 14th Amendment, I guess, or the Equal Protection Clause. Of course, underwritten in that is that, like, if states seek to pass protections for trans care, they can also do that. I assume the Supreme Court would admit this through gritted teeth. But nonetheless, this is a massive damaging blow to trans rights, because more states are controlled by Republicans than Democrats. And even some blue states have been shockingly willing to concede ground on the issue of trans rights specifically. It ain't good. And, of course, because that's not insult to injury enough, the Trump administration announced that the National Queer Suicide Prevention Hotline, you know, the 988 hotline, where you can call if you have issues with, like, suicidal ideation and stuff, where you can talk to somebody and like, talk yourself down from potentially taking yourself out. The administration decided we're going to eliminate the section of that is dedicated specifically to queer youth. This was created in 2022 in response to an increased proportion of queer and particularly trans youth committing suicide. And the program was massively successful. It is a very useful resource. Of course, it's not enough, but it is something. And the Trump administration unilaterally decided that in 30 days' time, they will be ending it entirely. Now, if you need to get talked down from doing anything that could take yourself out permanently, you would have to go to the regular 988 hotline, which obviously I would still recommend anybody do if they are struggling with severe mental health issues. However, it is nonetheless a staggering attack on trans rights and queer rights generally, that the administration said this was specifically designed to prevent queer youth from killing themselves. Let's get rid of that so that more queer youth kill themselves. That's what happened in the last 3 days. Basically, the country is over until it isn't, but like, I don't know, guys. It's looking pretty over right now. They maximize for the most game ending. Yeah, it really is. It is like genuinely kind of shocking to see just how much the ideology of conservatism is defined by, not designed by, defined by a desire to inflict the maximum evil possible, especially on people that are already in a weakened state relative to everybody else. So they hate you, they hate me, they hate everybody, but they realize that they can't just kill everybody. They're gonna go after the people that they deem to be degenerates first, the people that are different, the people that occupy a marginalized position in society, which means queer people. That's conservatism. It is a death-suicide cult. Neoliberalism is more so suicide cult than death cult, but yeah, conservatism is just... there's a reason that I compared it to a natural phenomenon of a raging wildfire that will not and cannot stop until it has consumed absolutely any and everything in its path, because that is what it is. It is just a machine of death and destruction and suffering. That is all it is capable of. Conservative ideology never has and never will offer anything positive to the world. And I put to you that any conservative that has a redeemable opinion on something is wildly out of step with conservative ideology in having that opinion. It was a good bullet bill. Oh, dude, we got the invincible meme up there. Are you sure? Also, I got my custom textures working for the most part. I was experiencing an issue over the past couple of days where my character textures would load just fine, but an issue arose where you could probably see on the minimap there's the default like character heads, which I don't want there. You know, that's still an issue, and apparently I found out that is a problem as a result of something that the Retro Rewind team is aiming to fix in a later update. But I did actually figure out how to change the track textures within the framework of the Retro Rewind pack. So I have I have some tracks have a nighttime themed texture where they might otherwise not, because I'm a big fan of that theming. Second place. Isn't a what? A Boltzmann's brain just premium solipsism? Boltzmann? Boltzmann brain. Is that the brain in the vat thing? The Boltzmann brain thought experiment. Oh boy. I believe I've heard of this, but I don't remember what it is. Suggests it is probably more likely for a brain to spontaneously form, complete with a memory of having existed in our universe, rather than for the entire universe to come about in the manner that cosmologists think it actually did. Physicists use the Boltzmann brain thought experiment as a reductio ad absurdum argument for evaluating competing scientific theories. Basically, this is a refutation. It's a refutation, I believe, of the Big Bang theory of universal formation, where the not the show The Big Bang Theory, keep your pants on, the theory of the Big Bang stipulates that the universe basically was in like it was in a hot dense state of 14.7, never mind, no, everything in the universe was infinitely compressed to such an extent that many fundamental physical barriers were overcome. Weak force, strong force, Coulomb force, etc. So that the universe was just a soup of indistinguishable, like, not even plasma. It transcends the level of even plasma, because plasma is matter with measurable properties. It's like this immeasurable, infinitesimally dense yet all-encompassing mass of like energy mass or something like that. sounds really convoluted. It's actually only sounds convoluted because it is beyond the scope of what we can comprehend. It's actually incredibly simple. The entire universe was just one state of thing. Like, imagine you have in your hand the cube, right? The cube, TM. Except the cube is like, you know, infinitely hot, infinitely dense, and like completely tweaking out. That's what the universe was like. It was just fucking nothingness compressed infinitely, you know? And then a single, like, the theory has it that, like, a single fluctuation happened, or some set of processes that we do not know about occurred that caused this to expand. Something happened where the state of being of the cube, TM, changed, and then, like, the universe just started expanding, and started cooling down at the same time because it was all of a sudden less dense, right? And that's how you get everything forming from stars to quasi-stars to galaxies, black holes, nebulae, gas clouds, etc., all the way down to planets, right? And the universe has kept expanding since then. Basically, everything was all in the same place to such an incomprehensible extent that it was like, wow, that's the... And then there's just a blank space because it's like, what the fuck? And then it just expanded infinitely. Basically just combobulated matter that later on solidified into quarks and stuff. Yes. That is the Big Bang expansion model of the universe. I guess the Boltzmann brain is this guy saying, wow, that's really fucking stupid. You guys are all morons. It's more likely that a brain could spontaneously assemble itself complete with, like, memories of being a human and having a life or something in the universe. Like, that is more likely than what you guys suggested, even though all the physical evidence we have points to an indeterminate amount of time ago that expansion of the universe happening, because as far as we can tell, the universe is all expanding, like, with relation to, like, everything. And so that's, like, the best we can come up with, you know? Basically, Boltzmann is an edgy contrarian that wanted to feel like he was smarter than physicists, so he came up with the Boltzmann brain thought experiment, and physicists still dog on him for that. So... As to what a solipsism is, I'd probably agree. I don't remember. It's like, is a solipsism like a brain growth or a brain tumor or something? Because if so, then yes, the Boltzmann brain is just, like, solipsism shit. I am in about as good a position as I could reasonably be in, I think, at this point. Reminds me of those stupid Christian arguments. Yeah. One of the main issues there being that with a lot of these sort of Christian creationist theory arguments, a lot of it boils down to the inability to be like, I don't know, dog, shit's weird. And not really have an explanation, so they have to inject arguments of divine creation and God into a lot of shit. So yeah. Maybe this, or wait, maybe this wasn't a... Maybe this wasn't a refutation of the Big Bang Theory. Maybe this was a contributing element to its creation. Hold on. Boltzmann brains are used in cosmology to test our assumptions about thermodynamics and the development of the universe. Funny part is when people don't when people don't accept dog, we don't know, and neither do you. Yeah. It's like when I say we don't know, that means the collective body of humanity and all research and knowledge doesn't know. And that includes the, you know, random creationist dipshits that you would argue with over this. Oh, so, okay, this was a refutation. The Boltzmann brain was a refutation of a way dumber theory of universal coalescence and formation, saying that, like, yeah, given our admittedly rudimentary, like, observations of quantum mechanics, it is possible for particles to spontaneously assume a given state and formation. Which is true. That exists for quantum mechanics. Like, that happens. Shit can just happen for no discernible reason. And, like, at that level, physics actually starts to break down. Like, it's really weird. And Boltzmann, or actually, not even getting to Boltzmann yet, they were like, okay, so applying this principle, maybe that's how all the universe formed, where, like, this spontaneous formation happened over a long enough period of time that, like, more complex structures began to develop. Galaxies, planets, nebulae, stars, etc. And then Boltzmann was like, that's fucking stupid. In which case, he is still a dumb, edgy contrarian, but is probably correct that I feel like it was a little bit jumping to conclusions, maybe, to be like, oh wow, this new quantum mechanics thing was discovered. That's obviously how the universe formed. Although even still, like, I'm saying all this, but we still actually don't know how the universe formed. These are all just different series of, like, best guesses. And the best guesses get pretty fucking weird when we're talking about, like, the emergence of physics as a concept, you know? Oh no, I took my box. And I didn't get a box. No, what? Did he, am I tripping, or did he land on me exactly as his star ran out and I got hit by, like, the last frame? The fuck was that? In the future, humans are just gonna be straight up wizards? I don't think so. I think it's more likely we do some Warhammer 40k shit before we get to that point, like, with the Imperium of Man, God Emperor, such and such, and then everybody works, like, as slave laborers, basically. The cycle of it being so Jover and then us being so Baroque will continue. I feel like that's, you know, all indications are that history is just going to keep proceeding like that. But right now, it's pretty Jover. We're yet to be so Baroque. What a kooky guy, that Boltzmann. Got that air conditioner humming away. Jesus, that is probably going to save my life this summer. Maybe not literally, but, you know. I'm looking at this this thing I have pulled up on Twitter. I thought this was notable because it portends to the weather coming up. I wanted to talk a little bit about this. Don't know if I'll make it a segment. Probably not. But there's a heat dome developing. Oh, God damn it. There's a heat dome developing that is encompassing, God, it's really big, all of the eastern US, and by eastern US I mean everything from the east, like east of the Rocky Mountains, which is fucking huge. Encompasses a decent chunk of Mexico as well, and it looks like southern Canada's getting hit too. And there's gonna be a lot of humidity and heat. Let's see, for large swaths of the US and Canada, the maximum dew point, a direct measure of peak humidity, is forecast to exceed the 90th percentile for the time of year, which means wet bulb temperatures like are going to be hit very easily. as, let's see, in some states as well as in southern Canada, it's likely to break records. So record-breaking humidity and heat, yeah, it's gonna suck. Climate change, ladies and gentlemen. As a meteorologist, a science communicator, building trust means backing up forecasts with data and stats and going well beyond anecdotal evidence. Extreme humidity, not just extreme temperatures, will make headlines over the next week as a heat dome develops. I wonder how all the news outlets are going to square this with an anti-climate change narrative, or if they're even going to try. They might just, like, it's not out of question that they might just ignore it entirely. Not the fact that it's hot and humid or whatever, but they just, like, won't talk about any relation that this has to climate change. Any technology advanced enough is indistinguishable from magic? Yeah. I suppose so. Oop. Oh no. Fourth. Okay. Humidity levels will surge across 40 states and southern Canada, bringing tropical rainforest-like conditions, especially next week. Wow, this map is rough. Basically, if you live east of the Rocky Mountains, don't go outside for the next... How long is this supposed to take place for? For the next week. Okay. June 17th to July 2nd. All right, limit your outside time. Anybody who lives in the applicable regions, limit the time you spend outside. Make sure you got plenty of water, because you are not tough enough to handle this. People die in these kinds of weather conditions. Thank God I'm only in Europe and we only have 38 degrees Celsius on the street. Jesus, that's rough. I am so sorry to hear that. And God, and Europe doesn't have air conditioning the way that the US does. Make sure you got plenty of water. Make sure you got your little fan going. Jeez, I feel like one of the few things that I feel like you could very easily... 44 degrees C last year? Jeez, man. God, I guess that's why the energy crisis is such a huge imperative in Europe, or it is like such a big concern, because you need heat in the winter, but you also need cool in the summer. And I was saying, like, yeah, you know, I was about to say, like, it might be a big infrastructure project that needs to take place, that like European infrastructure and buildings could be refitted for air conditioning systems or even just air conditioning units. But I remembered that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of electricity and stuff. And Europe is kind of going through it now with respect to energy and energy prices and stuff. I have infinite water? That's good. 56 degrees. In some parts up to 56 degrees C. Yeah, anything above 30 degrees C is hot. 40 degrees C is like you have a fever. And then 50 degrees C is just don't fucking go outside. You know? Jesus, that is hot. You'll become cooked meat? Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that I've been talking a lot about the wet bulb temperature, because yes, you actually do start to boil alive when it gets hot enough. That's where humidity plays into heat-related deaths and stuff like that, and heat in general, is that your body does have mechanisms that can cool you down. For example, sweating. But if it's humid enough outside, then your body won't be able to sweat because there's already too much moisture around you. And like your sweat won't be able to cool you down beyond a certain point. And that's known as the wet bulb temperature. The temperature and humidity combo at which you can't be outside for longer than like maybe a couple of hours, because after that point your organs start to like liquefy and you start to cook in your own skin. It like literally, that's the point at which it becomes actually unsafe to be outside. And there was a massive controversy in the United States where the government of the state of Florida refused to legally allow or legally mandate certain break periods for workers when these kinds of temperatures were hitting, I believe, last summer. In fact, it's only the past couple years where this has become such a well-known and common phenomenon that, you know, you'd be able to recognize it by name, you know? Like, I talked about this, I think, last year and the year before, the wet bulb temperatures. The basically, you will die temperature. 44C with 86% humidity in the south. Yeah, that's awful. That is beyond the you will die temperature. Sounds like a storm video game hazard. If you stay in this random spot in existence, you will stop existing. Yeah, it literally like the fucking volcano level where it's like, don't stand in one spot for too long. Find shelter, otherwise you will start to burn to death. Which, I mean, that's just a more extreme version of being what being outside already was, because, like, you get sunburned and shit, and that can cause cancer later in life, but, like, it's way more practical to be outside on just a regular kind of hot day when the sun is shining and it's like, oh yeah, pack some sunblock, than when it's wet bulb temperature and it's like, okay, the clock is now ticking for like, it's somewhere between 2 and 4 hours. Inland, it's not wet heat. Well, humidity implies that it is wet heat, which is rough. But yeah, with wet bulb temperatures, it is literally like, all right, there's a at most 4-hour countdown. Clock is ticking. When this countdown runs up, you might incur like permanent internal organ damage just from being outside because of the heat. I'm gonna try to... Okay, I got somebody when they landed. Oh wait, I misread. You said in the south, but in inland it's not that humid. That's good. Yeah, it is worth mentioning as well. The wet bulb temperature gets like the more humid it is, the lower the wet bulb temperature is, which means it can be less hot nominally, but you'll still be in the fucking danger zone. But if it's a lot drier, then it can get significantly hotter, and because it's dry heat, there's not as much of that threat that, like, you're gonna fucking get seriously injured after being out here for a couple of hours. Just by virtue of, like, being outside. I don't know why I'm holding this mushroom, but I am. Probably do something like this. Yeah, okay. Oh. Well, oh no! Green shell. I think, yeah, that connected. It hit somebody. Give me that mushroom. Okay. Whew. Minus 10 for fourth. Whatever. Let me see if I can't look up that shit about the queer suicide hotline. Mushroom was useful in the end? Yeah, that's true. that's Reuters. Trump administration to shutter specialized queer suicide lifeline option. Also, when I say queer, I'm shortening the acronym of LGBT or LGBTQ, LGBTQ plus, whatever. Suicide lifeline option sparking backlash. Great. Oh, great. They do the whole LGB drop the T thing in their announcement too, the administration. Spear ideology is just the show Attack on Titan. Yeah. One of those fucking sicko ideologies that's just like everyone must be going through it to the maximal extent possible at all times. Why? Because I fucking feel like it. It's like, what? Why? Why? I mean, to answer, like, I guess I kind of answered my own question there with why, because they feel like it. But, you know, sometimes it does kind of prompt you to wonder, like, oh, why the fuck would they feel like it, right? You know, with conservatism being the ideology that it is, like, why the fuck would anybody support this? Number one, because ideology is for the masses and is manufactured from the top down, especially in instances of pro-hierarchy or otherwise conservative ideologies, so that people in power can remain in power. That's one component of it. But also, what leads people to pick up on those ideologies is because they're incels. People are lonely and antisocial, and with that comes a lot of antisocial tendencies and self-destructive behavior that takes the form of lashing out against people. But because of the, paradoxically and ironically, because of the increasingly antisocial social climate, especially in the United States, there's not even anybody around to lash out at. So they're forced to vicariously act that out through other venues, through online interaction, message boards, and politics. It is literally the ideology of I am a fucking, you know, I'm a danger to myself and others, you know? It's mentally ill people acting out because they feel cheated by the world, and are, like, very antisocial and reactionary, and, like, can't function properly, you know? And that's why like any institution anywhere does shit like this, because from one perspective this is part of a broader ideology that props up hegemonic institutional power, but then on the other hand it's because the mass approval for this ideology, to the extent that they've succeeded in manufacturing it, comes from fucking lonely online incels who are like incapable of functioning, but are incapable of expressing that dysfunction because there's a distinct lack of social environments within which to express it. Antisociality is actually still a set of tendencies, a set of social tendencies that has to be expressed to be visible. And these people don't like being invisible. That's part of what makes people upset. So they need a venue to express that. And of course, because so much of this is very, like, reactionary coded, there's, like, a lot of psychosexual implications to this kind of ideology, where they hate people that are more self-actualized with respect to however they see themselves, and frequently that comes in the form of you know, queer people, trans people, because they view them as being true to themselves in a way that they are incapable of, maybe that they've forgotten how to be, you know? Am I doing the most far righters are like closeted trans people or queer people meme? Kind of, a little bit. But it doesn't even necessarily have to be that. I think a lot of them are just stuck in the maelstrom. They've entered the weave and they can't leave it. They cannot find the exit to the weave. You know? And they're trying to take out their frustration, but there's nowhere even to do that anymore. So they want to, like, bring the whole world down with them. Leftist meme, that is why incels are the way they are, and that's why the ruling ideology of conservatism has morphed into what it is, and that's why the government like does this shit fundamentally, just because they are spiteful, they are hateful, they represent a constituency that is spiteful and hateful of themselves, and that ideology needs to manifest through politics and social media, because those are the only two social venues left for it to manifest itself. It like they can't go out and just be really fucking cringe and abnormal and stinky at a coffee shop, because there's no local coffee shop to go act out at. You know? You know how to do this? You can, from the person that hates everyone and then make them cry. Oh yeah, these people are like constantly very close to crying. And a lot of the reason that I know this stuff is because I actually used to be not necessarily adjacent to this ideology like in college, but I experienced a lot of the same things, and I sort of drifted in that direction for a little while. You know, I'm not gonna do the whole I'm not going to say that I fell down the alt-right pipeline and then escaped or whatever, because I was not in it that deep. There are many people who were in it way deeper than I was, but you know, certainly the despair, the loneliness, the depression, whatever, the sort of the very confusing sense of angst where I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out how to address it, basically. So I started like acting out in small ways, right? But then even then, there just weren't that many places to do that. And to bolster the point here, when I was more regularly integrated into social settings, I started being a more fucking functional human being. You know? I guess that's why I enjoyed class time in college so much, because it was like a genuine opportunity to socialize and talk about interesting shit. And I was also very close to crying at any given point in my college life. You know? Depression hit me like a truck. It's hitting a lot of queer people like a truck. But instead of going into inceldom, a lot of them are calling the suicide hotline, and the administration's like, no, we hate queer people because our ideology is that of being a suicide death cult, so we're getting rid of the queer branch of the suicide hotline. I hope I didn't waffle too hard. I hope that makes sense to the people watching or listening, either in chat or on YouTube later. I might make that a segment. Because I want people to understand that, like, this is not your grandpa's conservatism that we're witnessing right now. The country is being governed by incel Nazi ideology. That is the ideology of the day that is currently running the United States. There's people like that in government. You got your Stephen Millers, you know? But also that's the base of people that is most active online and that is most feverishly devoted to the Republican Party, is the incels and the, you know, the manosphere types, people who share similar underpinnings of masculine loneliness and psychosexual frustration that they want to take out on anybody and everybody around them, but lack a venue even to do that, right? So the conservative structures in society offer to them, instead of actually addressing your problem, what if we simply acted vicariously on your behalf so that you can, you know, whinge and like whine about this shit online, and then you see us making people suffer in real life, and you get to derive schadenfreude from that. That's the ongoing relationship ideologically between the government and the right-wing base. You know, and all of that makes sense when the next time you look at people like going back and forth on what their supposed ideological stances are with respect to being anti-war or wanting costs to come down or whatever, you know, changing tunes seemingly on a dime to support whatever Trump is doing. That's why, because they just want to see other people suffer as a method for them to act out their insecurity, loneliness, and depression and mental illness. because there's so little left in civil society, they can't even be the, like, one racist asshole in the restaurant anymore, you know? Anyways. In times like this, I don't want it to just be like this dispassionate. I mean, it wasn't entirely dispassionate analysis, right? I connected that to some personal experiences that I had a few years ago. But I don't want this to just be like an academic sort of lens and mode of analysis, right? Because there are very real people whose lives are being affected by the queer suicide hotline being shut down next month. I mean, you know, my life could even be affected if I have, for some reason, a, like, depressive relapse, you know? You know, and the lives of people around me could certainly be affected to the limited extent that I have friends online. Quite a few of them are themselves queer, you know? And I guess this is just like the, you know, we're gonna be fucking going through it period of history. And I guess I'd just encourage people to stand strong if possible, and like, seek community wherever you can find it, because living and surviving through this is how you win. You know, conservatives want to see you die, and you win by living in spite of them. You have to be more ready to live than they are to kill you. You know, keep going to protests and being annoying at your local town meetings or whatever the fuck, and seek camaraderie in each other's arms to the extent you can find other queer people in the community, etc. You know, anything you can do to keep living is important. And if you can't find a reason to keep living, then keep living. Do it for me. Or find a reason to do it, right? Don't let them win. I'm not usually one of the types of people that says this, but sometimes just existing and surviving is revolutionary. Yeah, be the fucking main character. Convince yourself that you're him or her. And enter the weave in parentheses positive. You know, lock in. Yeah. I don't know if there's that much else I can say about it. Yeah, it's all right. Don't worry about it. This is just Act 2. This is just the It's So Jover part of the movie, right? We're gonna have Act 3. There's gonna be the climax, Craigasm. We're gonna be so Barack. You will never even believe how Barack we will be. We're gonna do Reconstruction 2. You know, the incels will be so mad. They will be more mad than they've ever been in their entire lives. But then everything will get better. Billions must die? No, billions must try. Anyways, I think I gotta end the segment basically there. Look, you have friends in various places, maybe not high places right now, but we will get through this. Humanity has survived worse. We will survive this, and I think that applies to the queer community as well. You know, the queer community has survived worse throughout history, and you will survive this, because, you know, what, are you gonna let yourself be taken down by a fascist? No, you are an extremely cool and emotionally strong and based queer Giga Chad or Giga Stacy, and the conservatives are dumbass incels who hate you and themselves and everything else. So they're gonna, you know, throw the fucking kitchen sink at you. Just stand there with your chiseled jawline, Mew, and then tell them, nah, I'd win, and then you win. All right. Cut the segment. Stay strong out there, folks. I'm gonna try to stay out of this guy's way. Okay, he threw away his green shells. I don't know if, truth be told, I don't even know if I want to do like a draft. Oh, wow, that POW got him good. Damn. And now I'm in first with no item. For the No King purpose, I stayed for an hour. Oh, you went to the No Kings event? That's cool. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be watching the live stream. That's true. Bullet bill. Okay, for a second I thought that guy might have been cheating, but I think he's just lagging. First protest, I don't really like crowds. I felt uncomfortable, didn't sleep the night before, so I just kind of went. That's alright. Look, there's a first time for everybody. My first protest, I think, was the March for Science back in 2017, when the Trump administration was repealing a bunch of environmental regulations. I went with my dad. And, the crowds can be rough, but it really helps if you go with a friend, if you go with somebody that you're familiar with. I didn't stay there for like an hour and 30 minutes before I left. That's fine. That's fine. Look, the fact that you turned out, yeah, I got the picture. I got the picture. Third Strike reference. The fact that you went is great. Look, that's commendable in itself, And just, some friendly tips if the next time you consider going to a protest, crowds can be kind of rough. So if you can, bring a friend and just stick with them. That way you guys can focus a little bit more on each other and you don't get distracted by the swelling mass of people, at the protest, Oh yeah. I actually did want to talk a little bit about the No Kings protest because there's been some discourse about it online. What hasn't there been discourse about, right? I commended it when it was happening because it was a massive public show of discontent with the government, which is always nice. One person asked me a question. I was like, "Oh dear God, stop talking to me." It's always like that the first time. You just gotta assume that most of the other people at the protest are probably there in earnest like yourself. It's kind of rare that you run into like a Fed. It'll be really obvious if you run into like a Fed or a bad faith kind of person at a protest. So for most of the folks at a protest, it's all well and good. But I totally understand what you mean. Oh shit, can't drive? It's an American. Not just because the blue line. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, the No Kings protest. It's always nice to see mass discontent with a fascist government, But at the same time, I did see some discourse about it that I thought it apt to talk about. There are some liberals online. I kind of forgot that sometimes liberals are like this. There were some liberals that were acting like, haha, that's it, Trump's finished because of this protest. And I was like, guys, come on. It is kind of like, I guess it is a little bit surprising that there are people that are that naive that don't actually understand what protests do, what they're for, and like how things impact government, or more accurately, how they don't sometimes. So to address that, no, this protest is not, no, like, get the fuck out of here, Trump, you're finished. No, this is just to be like, yeah, we fucking hate you, and your political platform, So a lot of the lefties that were like, this won't accomplish anything, unfortunately, they're kind of correct. The public discontent matters a lot, and the expression of that discontent matters a lot. What the difficult part is that it has to be sustained. You have to, everything doesn't have to be as big as the No Kings protest, right? But there has to be a sustained show of discontent with fascism, sustained anti-fascist sentiment from the left, to actually craft the narrative that eventually does lead to governments getting a lot more uncomfortable, having to either reform their way out of fascism, as some countries did in the late 20th century, or just be overthrown entirely, right? This was a one-off on its own. It needs more accompanying events. That's one part of it. And the other part of it that makes this a lot more difficult is that you need friendly figures in places of power. You need politicians and media outlets that are sympathetic to your cause. the media didn't talk about the No Kings protests, not appreciably. They talked about it for one day while it was happening, sometimes in juxtaposition to the military parade, and then they dropped it like a hot iron. The media is a completely hostile environment to anything left of neocons at the moment. So they're not going to help here. It's kind of an uphill battle. And in this respect, the tankies are correct in saying like this on its own isn't really going to do anything. You know, protest all you want, but the conservatives just have at the moment like a really overwhelming media capture, which is going to be very difficult to overcome. Not impossible, but very difficult, right? You need access to those levers of power, which is why it's important to be involved in local and state level politics, right? The more you calcify anti-fascism at a local and state level, the harder it is for the federal government to extend the long arm of the state into those areas, because you will have people that are not just feckless liberals, but are actually willing to stand up to the federal government, knowing that, like, look, if we say no enough times, eventually you actually do have to just send in the military, and that's going to be ugly. You know? Am I hitting a wall there? Is that what's going on? The purpose is to show you're not alone in hating this guy. Yeah, and unfortunately, if another part of that formula isn't really fulfilled, the part about having friendly figures in powerful positions, then the unfortunate truth is that it's the support for anti-fascism in this country is going to dwindle. Because all of the media is pro-fascism, the government, obviously, is pro-fascism, and although fascism is an inherently incoherent ideology, as I discussed earlier, and is prone to self-destruction, that takes time, and it's going to take a lot of stuff with it if people aren't really able to put up that big of a fight. What in the... Getting Mario Karted on the last lap was that? Damn. So those are my thoughts on the No Kings protests. It's cool that they happened, but you know, the tankies are right that it's possible this ends up being just a one-off event. Like various other protests that didn't amount to much. You know? In fact, I think, who was it? SDL mentioned that, like, yeah, there's kind of a political science formula that actually analyzed this. And in order for a protest movement to be successful, you have to have high turnout, consistent events, and friends in places of power. There's like a 1, 2, 3 combo that leads to reforms eventually getting passed. And this only met 2 of those. And we need to basically get progressives elected. You know? And not just liberal progressives either, you know. Not like your Rokana. I mean, Rokana might be a bad example because he is Rokana of Rokana cycle fame. Question mark, question mark, question mark, into question mark, question mark, question mark. Repeat ad infinitum. Congratulations, you now have the Rokana cycle, and you are correct exactly 50% of the time. No, I mean like people that are left of even AOC and Bernie Sanders, people who are more willing to be mean, more along the lines of Zoran Mamdani. You need politics to transform at an electoral level into something that resembles that. You know, a lot of protests in France, in Germany, in potentially the Netherlands, in European countries that have multi-party systems have they pack more of a punch because those countries all have left parties, or at least nominally left parties in government, to sympathize with, you know, unions, pro union protests, and pro-asylum protests, anti-war protests, and things like that. They have the friends in places of power piece of the puzzle. That's a lot of alliteration, I just realized. And yeah, there's a reason that, like, in America, the political system is very, very stacked against that not happening. There's so much of this that's interconnected. Like, legitimately, as weird as it sounds, in order for more protest movements like the No Kings rallies and the LA protests to pop up and be successful, you need to start restructuring cities at a local level so that it's easier to demonstrate that kind of sentiment consistently, and you need to elect people like Zoran Mamdani at the state and local level so that that sort of politics becomes more locally ingrained. So it's harder for a fascist institution or set of institutions to clamp down on it if they feel like it. That was a good race. But, deep state wants to do deep state shit. And when I say deep state, I mean basically the military-industrial complex, the intelligence agencies, etc., everything that, like, serves the American business interest, that operates behind closed doors, that news outlets never write about, etc., etc. Yeah. So, No Kings protests, kind of lib shit. Some refreshing lib shit. It's refreshing to see liberals be like, actually, we don't like fascism. That's pretty bad. Fascism's pretty bad. But, we only wish they would be better at it and do it more frequently, is the problem. And then you had mentally ill liberals from Europe online who are one step removed from Hitler saying, oh yeah, you see this giant protest that happened once in America? This is why the left is incapable of doing anything, because liberals are all like so much better. Don't pay no mind to the decades of union smashing and anti-socialist propaganda that took place. That obviously has nothing to do with the reason that the left is in such a shambled state in America, I'm very smart. Vote for the fucking French Liberal Party or whatever. No one would fall for that in modern times. Unfortunately, some people did. Well, people might not fall for it per se, but there's plenty of people who agree with it. Unfortunately, some big boy European liberals. There's a reason I specified European liberals, is because I actually saw this on Twitter. Them being like, this is why the left is stupid and can't organize. Look at how much better the liberals are at organizing, or something like that. And I was like, that's great. Do you care to critically analyze why there are a lot of liberals in America, why there aren't a lot of socialists or communists? Would you care to hazard a guess? But like I said, a lot of times people fall into the trap of engaging with that shit because it is engagement bait. But remember, like, when you see a European liberal, these people are, like, more racist than even American conservatives. Which is a very high bar to clear, but they do clear it. Like, for American conservatives, right? Even the most racist American conservative, legitimately, I think you could ask fucking like, maybe not a groiper, but like you could ask a MAGA hat wearing rural know-nothing who has like Trump signs everywhere, should black people have rights in this country? Should black people and white people have equal rights? Their answer would be yes, right? And of course they would clothe it in a lot of 1350 whatever, and like argue that, oh well, racism is over, or something like that. But the answer would be yes. Meanwhile, you could ask a European liberal, like in France, should Germans have rights? Should Jews have rights? And for a lot of them, they would like provide some sort of non-answer to the question, or in some cases just straight up say no. And for the purposes of the point I'm trying to illustrate, I'm not going to go for the low-hanging fruit of the Balkans, because we all know what the Balkans are like. What I'm saying is that all of Europe is also kind of like the Balkans. That was a really well-placed pow. Holy sh... I'm getting bumped. Anyways, that probably fulfills the dogging on liberals quota this stream. Honestly, I've had less and less reason to dog on American liberals. Like, your average American liberal is probably is a lot closer to socialism than probably even a lot of like European socialists in the 19th and 20th and even 21st centuries. You know? Like, you could go to the liberal politicians in the United States are wildly unrepresentative of the liberal political base that they represent. Like, if you ask the liberal base, like your average liberal voters in America, what should happen to Trump and everybody else in his government, their answer would be too hot for me to say on twitch.tv, you know? And if you pitch to them, do we need Reconstruction too? A lot of them would probably say yes. You could ask them a lot of like, should we fucking break up giant monopolies and turn these corporations over to the workers that work them? Should we have mandatory board representation? Should we have more union protections? Should we roll back all these cuts to these social safety services? Like, stuff that socialist populists support in Europe, the average liberal in America would say, yes, I want all of those things. You know? Meanwhile, the average liberal in Europe is like, at best, in favor of slightly increasing taxes. And is like, tourism is good, actually. I'm very smart. Although tourism's kind of a niche issue, I think you get the idea. There are a lot of very left-wing political aspirations and programs that regular-ass liberals in the United States would support, that like liberal politicians in America and liberals elsewhere in the world would sort of turn their noses up and sneer at. You know? Basically, what I'm saying is, USA, USA, our liberals are better than your liberals. Sincerely, a socialist. I don't know how I negotiated that corner the way I did. Oh. What's up, Alex? I'm taking the inside line. Give me this box. Thank you. No! How? Anybody see that? I have 3 rotating greens. He hits me with his trail, leaves unscathed like nothing ever happened. Excuse me? I'm getting twisted into a fucking pretzel knot this session. Oh yeah, another thing. I will not make a segment about this, but the Virginia primary elections happened. That was interesting recently. In fact, I think they happened exactly 1 week prior to the New York primary. The New York City mayoral primary. It happened just this Tuesday. And I was looking at some of the electoral races with interest, with decent interest. I think, to me, electoralism is more viable of a strategy the lower down in the levels of government that you get. So at the local level, it is the most viable. At the federal level, it is the least viable. Although that's not to say it is not viable at all. It's just not like it alone cannot save us and will never save us. It's probably because of corruption. Yes, it is actually because of the degree of capture of politics and institutions on the part of capital. The least amount of that exists at the local level. So, in places like New York, in places like here or whatever, you can get very ardent union supporters and union reps running for office on a platform of workers' rights. You can get people advocating for more subsidized and affordable housing and rent freezes and stuff like that. You can get people running as socialists with a decent enough chance to actually win an election, right? Meanwhile, at the federal level, you have to say, like, you have to, like, compete over how many brown people you're willing to kill in the Middle East to be even remotely viable, because federal elections are more so decided by your compatibility with the military-industrial complex than by the political leanings of the population, right? Because the population has way, like, at large, has way fucking less influence on the machinations of federal government than any given business. Damn it. Oh no! Are you kidding me? Again on lap 3? You've gotta be kidding. 7th? Okay. No, 8th! What'd I say? Getting twisted into a pretzel knot? Yeah. That continues to apply. So let me actually... I want to take a look at those results. Hold on. Virginia primary elections results. Primary day, 2025. Jay Jones won over Shannon Taylor for the Virginia Attorney General. Which I think is cool. It was kind of like... some of these races, I was like, looking at the ballot, I was like, literally who? Which is why I look up all the candidates. Let's look up Jay Jones. What does he support? Issues. Protecting Virginia against the Trump administration. A lot of this is going to be virtue signaling because I don't know what position the Attorney General is actually in to do a lot of this stuff. Lowering costs. Holding corporate rule breakers accountable. Fostering growth and innovation. Pretty boilerplate, like, lib shit, basically. But, you know, he's not Terry McAuliffe, so I'm okay with him. James DeVita took a fat L. You guys remember that video I did a little while back on James DeVita, the guy whose entire platform was I fucking hate densification and affordable housing. He lost to Takis by a narrower margin than I would have liked him to lose by. Maybe it's just because he was so active in, like, canvassing all of the wealthier neighborhoods. He came to my fucking house again recently. Apparently, like, it was a couple streams ago. It was shortly after I got back from vacation. One of those streams, James DeVito was actually at my door. That guy, that politician that I made a video about, he came to our door and gave us another flyer. And I fucking wish I could have, like, got up and like somebody, like, let me know he was there. Ooh, that would have been juicy. Anyways, he lost. It was like 36-64 or something, which is a little disconcerting because, like, I don't think it's very good that like it even came that close between like him and the incumbent who is a city planner, but oh well. Again, it's probably just because of the canvassing that he did. Alright, I'm using this last turn. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Who else won? Oh yeah, I think this was one of the most progressive results here. Was this lady Ghazala Hashmi, who won the lieutenant governor primary race, and I think her platform, if I remember, included stuff about mixed use zoning. Here, Ghazala Hashmi. I don't want to get it twisted here. Issues: reproductive freedom, gun violence prevention, fighting bigotry, jobs and economy. I think she mentioned something about like tenant protections expanded, which I think only one or two other candidates who didn't rank very well mentioned, which is cool. Education, funding for public schools, that's all well and good. Yeah, housing. Clean, safe, decent housing is fundamental human right, and access to affordable housing is particularly important as we negotiate challenging economic times. We need to develop plans for those who are houseless and housing insecure. This is how you know she's good, is because she does the slightly cringe thing of like doing the liberal wordplay of like, oh, don't call it homeless because that's like problematic or something. Call it something else that like nobody cares about. I mean, I guess she won, so you know, don't knock until you try. That's not true. I will knock. I will knock it till I try it. For shit like centrism, but she's not a centrist as far as I know. So some decent results from the Virginia primaries. Other than that, I think like incumbents basically won across the board to the extent that they were running. Ow. Why does it always got to be the boost panel I'm going for right now? Damn. Give me across here. Well, okay, that was cutting it a little bit close. The best item in the game? Fuck yeah. And I dodge. What a fucking race. I better get a great spot because I got my my favorite item in the whole game. Goofy squid. I think I wait until after the after this ramp to throw this. Like right here. Yeah. He's way up there. The only hope I have probably of catching up to him would be a blue shell. Probably. Ow. I constantly get unlucky on lap 3. I don't know what's going on. Please don't have a red shell? I would love it if you didn't have a red shell. Okay, now I'm fine. If they have like a red shell behind me. Taking the outside line here. Don't want to get hit by lightning. Okay, we're good. Alright. Oh, finally a race that, like, doesn't end in fucking catastrophe, dude. Jesus. Oh yeah, wait. I wanted to see sometimes a lot of well, sometimes a lot of times local candidates and state level candidates will like compete over who can get what kind of endorsements. Ghazala Hashmi was endorsed by a lot of women's groups, which is pretty typical, and makes sense, you know. And then endorsed by, what else? National Association of Social Workers, Virginia chapter. Unite Here. Unite Here Local 25. Richmond for All. No, New Liberals? Okay, well, she was endorsed by the New Liberals, but she was also endorsed by some Yimbys, which sends mixed messaging, and 15-minute Fredericksburg, which is cool, I think. Local 23. Okay, so some unions as well. Progressive Democrats of America. Virginia Education Association. That's pretty good. Taking the long way around here. Maybe not so long way around? What happened? I thought that was, like, faster. Silly me, I guess. Oh, okay, yeah. Got him. No! You know what? I did it for the content. I think that was justified. Even if it means, like, I get a worse spot this race, it was funny, which is the most important part. And then I get bananaed afterwards. Great. Well, this race really went down the toilet. I wonder whose fault this is. Okay, mushrooms. Use one when I land so I don't get owned by that off-road. Okay, third place, not too shabby. I think I want to use these here so I get bananas or something. With any luck, I will get... No! Fucking... Where did that green shell come from? Where did it come from? No, you guys see that? This is a phenomenon that I've observed in online. God damn. Okay. Sometimes, I think because of latency and because of lag between, like, or discrepancies between client-side and server-side Mario Kart, items thrown back, green shells and red shells specifically, will track you. I've noticed this happening, where somebody will be rounding a turn, they will throw a green shell back in a way that indicates it's traveling at a certain angle to the left. It will actually turn to hit you. And that's because I think on their screen or on the server end, you've already been hit. Does that make sense? And it's trying to basically align what's happening on both people's screen with what's happening on the server. So sometimes you get a weird effect where it's the same thing, I think, that causes stuff to hit somebody when it doesn't look like the two are touching each other. You know? But yeah, sometimes it's really jarring and frustrating to see, like, somebody throw a green shell or a red shell back and it's moving super slowly and you're like, okay, I'll just turn inside of it. And then it fucking swerves and, like, curves to hit you as you're taking the inside line. You're like, fucking excuse me. And I think I remember that this is an online specific thing. I mean, if it exists in the way that I've described it, it would only make sense that it's online specific. I don't think I've ever seen this happen offline. I don't think an item, a shell thrown backwards is ever curved in that way if I was just playing like a single player race. Okay. Yeah, I'll be nice. I won't hit you with a red shell. Not this time. Where'd that red shell go? Huh? What's going on? Okay. That was a decent spot to use that mushroom. Going this one. I'm going to hold on to this for a little while, at least. Dang. Oh, no. Somebody is going to get a red shell behind me, and then it's going to be game over. Let me swerve in front of these bananas. Give me this item. Oh, no. They just got mushrooms, it looks like. What? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Somebody hits my trail at the last second, so I don't have a red shell to block the red shell coming in behind me, and I get hit. Brother. This just goes to show the best player does not always win in Mario Kart. You can make every correct decision. As far as I know, there wasn't a single point in that race where I made a wrong decision. Like, to my knowledge, every decision I made in that race, I did correctly. I needed an item at that last juncture. I was in a middle to back spot. The only chance I would have at finishing in a decent place was to go for that item box. I get punished for it and get fucking, what, 9th? But that's Mario Kart. And honestly, I feel like if there was a Mario Kart game where that wasn't a factor, where it wasn't possible for you to make every correct decision and lose, I wouldn't play that game. Because the flip side of that is also true. There are people who will make many wrong decisions and win. And that's kind of why Mario Kart is fun, because it's not this hyper-competitive game where you have to optimize everything about your decision-making or whatever in order to have a shot in the online, like, in any given online race, right? In fact, you're punished, I think, more than you're rewarded for optimizing your play, playing time trials, optimizing your lines. It's possible that you just like time trials, in which case, rewarded. But if you do that with the intention of getting better online, you're punished more than rewarded, because all you've done is added extra stress for the slight chance in the roulette that you may get first slightly more frequently, which is not worth it. It's way better to just adapt yourself to the mental circumstances of racing online, where sometimes that shit is just in God's hands, right? Like, you know. Item? No. I was a little too late. Is that? I don't know if that's possible for you to make without a mushroom, but I don't think I'm brave enough to try it in an online race. Excuse me, gentlemen. Oh, that bomb. Well, okay. It was very close to hitting that green shell. Did he get the mushroom? No, he didn't. And I'm now in first. Second? I'm okay with second here. Okay. Now, that was an example of a race where I made mostly correct decisions and was rewarded for it, but until I actually crossed the finish line, I was like, it is entirely possible that somebody zooms by, rams into me at mushroom speed, and I go flying off the track and get last for no reason. But like I said, that's Mario Kart. Let's go to 6. Let's see. So delegates 1. Oh yeah, that's the district that I'm in. Okay. Thus concludes my talk of the Virginia primaries. I wanted to check to see if there was anything that I missed. One thing I've noticed is the ramp up of discussion of 15-minute cities and affordable housing in the local and state level political discourse. And even in the federal political discourse. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that when you get, like, you know, if you ever see anything regarding local politics where you live, that everybody's talking about housing, how to bring down the cost of housing and shit like that. And it's well, I think in some ways it portends well for the future of local politics in this country. Because, you know, I don't know if you guys knew this, but during World War II and post-World War II in the 20th century, there was an insane amount of propaganda constantly being drip-fed to people through television, radio, PSAs, street signs, and other sorts of, like, billboards and posters about carpooling and the importance of cars and how cars are freedom and cars are American, and, you know, that's how infrastructure is going to be in this country. Everybody should have their own car or something like that, you know? And that sort of, the propaganda weave for cars is not really there anymore. So people are starting to question why we have so car reliant everything. You know, some of it's still around. You know, the fish still has a hard time seeing what it's in water, but you know, the situation's improving, which is nice. Ow. Oh, you fucker. Alright, I guess I deserve that for what I tried to do to them. You know what, though? I would be in a good position here if I were to get... Yes! Something like this. That's great. No! Oh, you know what I was just about to say? The moment I hit the fucking ice, I'm gonna use this Mega Mushroom. Punished so hard. I could feel the shock coming, too. I just felt a little bit secure in my position. It's like, okay, use this the moment that the tire hits the ice so that I can get, like, the most use out of it. That had to be sheer luck of the draw. Okay, one mushroom. Better than nothing. He's drafting up. He gets shocked in a higher position. All according to plan. I knew that would happen. I didn't, but I can pretend that I did. I have a mushroom. I think I know where I want to use this, and the shock just happened, so. And it is right here. Yep. Oof. That's an example of a race where a lot went wrong, and I still got a decent position. Holy shit. Plus 12 for third. They're making me work for it. But the good thing about Retro Rewind, this is one thing I have really enjoyed about Retro Rewind, is that more VR is gained in a given room, in a given race, than is lost. Like, if you have a small room, this is much more visible. The amount of VR that is gained, if you add it all up, totals a greater amount than the amount of VR that's lost between the players that gain or lose VR. So, like, in a 1v1, you'll have, like, plus 10 and, like, minus 5. Or something like that. I don't know what the exact split is, but I know that one of the things that made Mario Kart so infuriating in, like, WeFi, like, default Wi-Fi races and in, like, CTGP, is that the fundamental formula surrounding VR was that exactly as much VR was gained as was lost. And it was possible to gain more than 200 points of VR at a time if you were a really low VR player and you beat people with a lot of VR. So it was just brutal online. And of course, VR is just a number, you know? But none of us are immune to seeing number go up and number go down, you know? And I feel like a system like this is a good way to introduce people to that, because, like, you know, I think it's designed to sort of be Sisyphean, the VR of default Mario Kart and CTGP, and this is still that, but, like, less so. All right. That was, I would consider that to be the wrong decision, but I got away with it somehow. There we go. This is an example of that thing I mentioned where sometimes item placements are not necessarily meant to hit people, but rather to make them take wider lines that they otherwise might not. Lucky me. Eh. Oh, I got him. Okay, my lead grows. That's good. And there it all goes away. Unless... Man, I honestly have a hard time believing that I had a blue shell's worth of lead and was still able to make, like, a big mistake on the last corner. Maybe I'm just nice. Maybe I'm just sick with it. Maybe I need to consider this. Oh yeah. It just crossed my mind. Well, people in the Discord mentioned, and I had been seeing all over the place, that Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz did an interview where Tucker Carlson actually came prepared and grilled him a bit. Now, there was a lot of heartwarming, the worst people you know are fighting, combined with heartbreaking, the worst person you know just made a good point, right? Ted Cruz is like, Zodiac killer memes aside, of course, we know our Zodiac boy very well. He's like one of the most incompetent neocons in Washington, which is a difficult feat, considering how incompetent the average congressperson is. Never mind the average Republican. And so he was basically trying to... he thought he was going to be going because Tucker is like a right-wing shill. He thought he was going to be going to rep like a favorable media environment and be like, oh yeah, this is why obviously we have to go to war with Iran. But he forgot that Tucker Carlson is a Nazi who hates Israel, as opposed to a Nazi who really likes Israel, because some of those do exist. So he was asking all sorts of very uncomfortable questions, which had coincidentally pretty good framing from the perspective of doing a critical interview of a politician. But they were motivated from a place of being on the far right. So there was like a twinge of dishonesty to everything that he said, but I found it entertaining nonetheless. You know, I feel like it's one of those things where I feel like that actually contributes to the argument that, like, yeah, nobody fucking wants to, like, invade Iran. Like, you tried to enter the 2003 weave where we were like, oh yeah, obviously, you know, Iraq has WMDs and whatever, and it is imperative that we go in with our military and destroy them. But, you know, people are just not here for that. They're just not here for it. Eh. What? Oh, I see. I was considering potentially watching the interview on stream, or at least some portion of it. I feel like that might be a task for one of the streams where I'm not playing Mario Kart. I'm just kind of chilling. Nice. Nonetheless, very good stuff. It is kind of crazy the degree to which the United States government is just like unwilling to do or say anything critical of Israel. And it makes it incredibly easy. It's so frustrating because that makes it really easy for Nazis to build the narrative that, like, oh, Israel actually controls America, which means the Zionist occupied government, something, and they're all coincidentally Jewish or something like that, right? When many conservative politicians have even admitted, Zionism and Judaism have nothing to do with each other. There are plenty of Christian Zionists that want the Jews to occupy the Holy Land so that the Jews can all be killed in the rapture and so that everybody else can go up to heaven. Like I said, murder-suicide cult, right? But no, the reality of it is that this is all like deep state shit. The reason that the United States is so consistently acting on behalf of Israel and doing things in favor of Israel is because Israel is just the 51st state. Or maybe not exactly that. They are America's attack dog. They are the state, the client state through which we outsource all of our military adventurism. You know how massively unpopular the Iraq War was after like the initial wave of news outlets all lying about WMDs and shit, and how unpopular Vietnam was at the time, how like people were all protesting and shit like that, the human rights abuses being leaked, etc., etc. It was a disaster for the legitimacy and PR of like the US government. America is trying to avoid that for the next time it enters a war, because it is going to enter a war, believe you me. So what they did was, oh, I got an idea. What if we outsource all this shit to another government, a nominally independent state? That way there's sort of a barrier, a proxy between us and the conflict. We can just say we're supporting our ally. But really it's like, it's all just the same people, right? And that's what Israel is. The greatest blue shell dodge of all time. Attempt a shortcut, fail. Blue shell can't hit you on the way down. Either way, it was a nice clash of like irrelevant Nazi that got booted from Fox News and like the most dead fish, rhetorically unskilled fucking neocon to ever grace the halls of Congress, duking it out. You know, two retards fighting moment. I was dangerously close to hitting that. That was a really bad decision to cut that line like I did. Okay, barely made it. Enter the weave, enter the weave. Okay. Jesus. Oh my god, that POW was so good. I'm gonna get first as a result of that POW. Nice. Damn. Sometimes the skill does pay off, and you feel so fucking good when it does. I still have not had any luck finding a Switch 2. There's no consistent deliveries of them to stores near me. Like, apparently, I went up, I remember, I think it was a week ago or something. My dad and I went up to the local Target, like one of the box stores near me, which partners with Nintendo for retail stuff, right? They're one of Nintendo's retailing partners. And we asked about the Switch 2, and, like, There was one day where my dad was up there, and the Switch 2s had already flown off the shelves within 30 minutes of Target getting them, which is crazy. There's like really high demand for that shit. But then the time that him and I both went up there and I asked them about Switch 2, they didn't have any. And I asked, do they know when they're going to get another shipment of them? They also said no, which makes sense. That, you know, guys working there not likely to know that. But they said something that was like, yeah, we, you know, not just they don't know when they're going to get the next shipment. We don't know when we will get shipments generally for the Switch 2. I think they said, like, yeah, we got, like, a little while ago, we randomly got, like, 6. I was like, what the fuck? And I'm thinking to myself, how the fuck does that happen? You know? So, more evidence, like, to back up the data that already suggests that, like, the supply chain is fucked. There's anecdotal evidence as well that, like, what the fuck is going on, basically. What? How am I in second? Oh, okay. He fell off. I see. That shock came at a good time for me, I think. The POW partially helped me avoid it. Oh, the fact that they got me right before the boost panel, though, is kind of rough, because it means a lot of people are going to be able to catch up. Banana here. Banana here, force people to take a wider line. Razor's Edge POW dodge. Very cool, thank you. And into lap 3. Could have been better, but as long as I maintain this lead, I think I'm fine. Like, I have, I think I easily have a blue shell of lead right now. Like, if I get hit by one blue shell, I'm fine. I say as I almost fucking drive off the edge like an absolute maniac. And an idiot. Take the wide line there, avoid my own banana. I did that section really well. The hop trick section. Okay. Raced really well, get first. Nice. Oh, there was one dynamic I wanted to mention that I kind of realized with respect to how politics is decided, how policy gets decided. And it occurred to me with respect to the housing issue. You know, the conversation about housing. Obviously, it's a perennial issue. It's come to the fore now because of how urgent it is, how much rents and mortgages are increasing. But it occurred to me, like, the reason that's happening is just because the material contradictions there, namely that, you know, there is an antagonistic force in society. People need housing, but it is too expensive. That's what I mean when I say contradiction. Two opposing things, forces, clashing against each other. It's just because of those material factors that this is now being discussed. In fact, a lot of discussion of this was kind of suppressed for as long as it probably could be, because of the two, or I guess 1.5 classes of people. And I say 1.5 because there's overlap, and really they constitute a broader owning class, or the interests of a broader owning class. And that is the, you know, the homeowners and the, you know, private property developers, you know, private equity and homeowners. they are slightly different kinds of owning class, which is why I say 1.5 classes as opposed to just one class. But nonetheless, they are owning classes, or rather part of the owning class. So the point I'm getting at is that both of those groups of people, everybody knew that high rent was a problem. Everybody knew that high home prices was a problem. That's why the debt economy developed, because of the awareness of that problem and the unwillingness to fix it. The thing is that there just, wasn't the willingness to fix it. The developers and homeowners knew the problem existed, they just didn't care because they could benefit from it, right? There's the most powerless group of people, the renters, are the people who know about the problem and care about it because they have no way really to benefit from it, If you're a homeowner, it's possible for you to turn over your house and flip it and sell it or whatever to make a profit. And that is you benefiting from the fundamental driving force of the housing crisis. The fact that housing is an appreciating asset that is traded on a profit basis, But, with private equity and with landlords, it's pretty self-explanatory. You get rent. But with renters, you're shit out of luck. And I guess, it sounds kind of self-explanatory to put it that way, but really that is how this stuff works. It's just that the problem only starts being discussed when it is so urgent that the owning classes have even realized that it's impossible for them to continue without at least letting it into the discussion. Kind of like how we all know that healthcare is a perennial problem in America, but it has actually entered and exited the discussion at various points because it is only a problem for the group of people who needs it the most, which is the group of people with the least amount of power to dictate political discussions, and the people with the power to dictate political discussions, the people who own media outlets, the media themselves, and the insurance companies, whatever, are very interested in seeing that it continue to not be talked about. So they just don't talk about it. Because they profit from it. Actually got the glitch there. That's cool. Oh, did he actually? Oh, he actually did hit the pokey. Oh, that kind of sucks. For him. I'm gonna put this fib right here. That was really sketchy, but it worked. Holy shit. So far, I've made basically only correct decisions. But that could all turn around. My race could still turn around because I don't have that much of a lead over the guy behind me. One blue shell and I'm probably done. Is that fib still there? Not going to do the sand hop. That was a really good POW, but I had the wherewithal and the experience to know how to maneuver around it. This will probably be the last race. It'd be nice to end it on a first place on my favorite track. Hell yeah. Nice. yet another session where I get dumpstered for most of it and then farm the lobby on the last few races. But, you know, it is what it is. Okay. Leave. Yes. Ah. Huh? Okay. Very nice. I don't know if you guys could hear the typing sounds on my keyboard. I've since stopped using Opera GX and I went back to Chrome because for whatever reason, the Opera GX was behaving very strangely with regards to my computer's memory and disk. Like, the amount of memory, I don't know what caused this, the amount of memory that Opera GX used would actually just increase over time. And I don't mean that with, like, opening new tabs. I mean, I could have one tab open and it'd be using, like, several hundred megabytes, and then over the course of a few hours with that tab open, it would climb to, like, 2 or 3 gigabytes. No clue why. It was also doing funky things to my disk, where there was significant chunks of time because of Opera GX, as far as I know, because when I switched back to Chrome, this stopped happening. My disk would sit there with 100% disk utilization with 0 read and write speed. This caused a number of hiccups for, like, video editing and shit. I am going to raid... I'm gonna raid Hassan. Maybe. Yeah. I got an idea here. I'll hit / raid Hasanabi. I got an idea. I saw that Zamu is live. Zamu, a Super Smash Bros. Player. I don't know. I was thinking about, like, ooh, maybe Noct to do a collab sometime. But I don't know what anybody else's streaming schedule is. I'm trying to brainstorm, like, every now and again what I can do to make the stream better. To like, give it some direction and stuff. But anyways, enjoy the Hasanabi broadcast. I'll be back soon.